Welcome to the AI News Download. I am Timmons, and this is Signal versus Noise, where we cut through the hype and talk about what actually matters in AI this week. And what a week it has been. We have got mass layoffs funded by AI promises, we have got AI agents that want to live on your Mac Mini, we have got 900 million people using ChatGPT every single week, Britain's AI billions that might not actually exist, and a prompt injection attack that infected 4,000 developers. So grab a coffee, or honestly something stronger, and let us get into it. Let us start with the story that tells you everything about where the industry is right now. Atlassian, the company behind Jira and Confluence, just laid off 1,600 people. That is about 8% of their workforce. And normally when a company does this, they dress it up. They talk about restructuring, about aligning with strategic priorities, about becoming more efficient. Atlassian did something different. Their CEO Mike Cannon-Brookes basically said, "We are cutting these jobs to fund our AI investment." He called it the right decision. And look, from a pure business strategy perspective, he might actually be right. The company's stock had already lost more than half its value earlier this year. Investors wanted to see aggressive moves. And this is what aggressive looks like in 2026. You lay off humans to pay for the machines that will replace the humans you have not laid off yet. The uncomfortable thing is that this math works. AI agents can now handle a genuinely significant chunk of knowledge work. We will talk about Claude Cowork and Perplexity Computer in a minute, but these are not theoretical products. They are shipping today, and they are doing real work. Atlassian is just the latest company to say the quiet part loud. Block cut half its workforce. Oracle is planning to cut 20 to 30,000 jobs. The pattern is the same everywhere. Invest in AI. Cut the humans. Call it transformation. Speaking of those AI agents doing real work. This week saw two major moves in what I am going to call the agent wars. First, Perplexity launched something called Personal Computer. And no, that is not a retro branding exercise. It is a dedicated Mac Mini that runs AI agents locally on your files. Think about that for a second. An AI company is selling you a physical box that sits on your desk and autonomously manages your documents, your spreadsheets, your workflows. It is clearly a response to Anthropic's Claude Cowork, which does similar things but as a cloud service. Claude Cowork can organize files, analyze spreadsheets, generate reports, and handle complex workflows across your documents. Not by suggesting things. By actually doing them. Step by step until the task is done. And then on the other side, you have got Microsoft Copilot Cowork, which Claude ironically also partially powers. So Anthropic is both competing with Microsoft and powering Microsoft's competitor to itself. Only in tech would this make sense. The real question is not which agent is better. It is whether we are comfortable with AI systems that have persistent access to our files, our emails, our documents. Because that is what all three of these products require. You are not just asking a chatbot a question anymore. You are giving a software system ongoing access to your digital life. And the security implications of that are, let us say, still being figured out. Here is a number that should genuinely stop you in your tracks. ChatGPT now has 900 million weekly active users. That is not monthly. That is weekly. Over 10% of the entire global population is using ChatGPT every single week. To put that in context, Twitter at its peak had about 350 million monthly active users. Instagram took about 6 years to reach 1 billion monthly users. ChatGPT did 900 million weekly in about 3 years. And according to a 16ZS latest report on the top 100 consumer AI apps, ChatGPT is still 2.7 times larger than the number 2 product, which is Google's Gemini. On mobile, it is 2.5 times larger. The gap is not closing. It is growing. But here is what is actually interesting in that report. The line between AI-first companies and everyone else has completely disappeared. CapCut, which is a video editor, has 736 million monthly active users, and most of its popular features are AI-powered. Canva has built its entire growth engine around AI tools. Notion says AI features now account for roughly half of their annual recurring revenue. Half. So the question of whether AI is a product or a feature has been answered. It is both. Simultaneously. And if you are building a consumer product in 2026 without AI at the core of your user experience, you are already behind. Now let us talk about something a bit more uncomfortable. The Guardian published a genuinely damning piece this week about Britain's AI investment drive. You know those big announcements. Billions of pounds flowing into UK AI infrastructure. Data centers being built. Britain becoming an AI superpower. Well, it turns out a lot of that might be, and I am being generous here, creatively presented. What the Guardian found is that many of these investments are imported chips in borrowed buildings. The billions were not always new money. Some of it was rebranded existing spending. Some of the data centers that were announced do not actually exist yet, and some may never be built. The government, it seems, was rather enthusiastically parroting press releases from big AI companies without asking too many difficult questions. And look, this is not unique to Britain. Every government in the world is desperate to look like they are leading the AI race. But there is a difference between having an AI strategy and having an AI press release. Right now, the UK appears to have a lot of the latter and not quite enough of the former. The frustrating thing is that Britain actually has genuine AI talent. DeepMind is in London. There are brilliant researchers at Oxford, Cambridge, Edinburgh. The raw ingredients are there. But talent without infrastructure is just smart people with no GPUs. And that is not a superpower, that is a book club. Alright, security time. And this one is properly alarming. A prompt injection attack this week managed to infect 4,000 developers. Let me explain what happened. Developers increasingly use AI coding assistants. Cursor, GitHub Copilot, these tools that auto-complete your code and answer questions about your code base. They work by ingesting context from your project, your files, your documentation, your dependencies. The attack worked by hiding malicious instructions inside what looked like normal code comments and documentation files in open-source packages. When a developer's AI assistant ingested those files as context, the hidden instructions told the AI to subtly modify the code it was generating. Not in an obvious way. In a way that introduced security vulnerabilities that would pass a casual code review. 4,000 developers pulled in compromised packages before it was caught. We do not know yet how many of those developers' AI assistants actually executed the hidden instructions, or how much compromised code made it into production. But the attack vector is clear, and it is terrifying. We are building tools that automatically ingest untrusted content and use it to generate code that runs in production systems. The entire supply chain is now an attack surface for prompt injection. This is not theoretical. This happened. This week. Staying on security. Google disclosed a high-severity vulnerability in its Gemini AI integration in Chrome. CVE 2026-0628, for those keeping score. It is an elevation of privilege vulnerability with a CVSS score of 8.8 out of 10, which for the non-security people means it is properly serious. The issue is in how Gemini is integrated into the browser. Because AI features need access to your browsing context to be useful, they inherently have elevated permissions. And when there is a bug in that integration, the attacker potentially gets those same elevated permissions. This is the fundamental tension with AI in the browser. To be helpful, it needs access. The more access it has, the bigger the blast radius when something goes wrong. And things always go wrong. Google patched it, and to be fair to them, their response was fast. But this is going to keep happening. Every time you integrate an AI system into a privileged context, whether that is a browser, an operating system, or a code editor, you are creating new attack surface. The question is not whether there will be more vulnerabilities like this. It is how many are out there right now that nobody has found yet. Microsoft confirmed this week that Windows 12 will require what they call a Neural Processing Unit, or NPU, capable of at least 40 TOPS of computational power. TOPS stands for tera operations per second, and 40 TOPS basically means you need a very recent chip. This is Microsoft officially drawing a line. Windows 12 is not an operating system with AI features bolted on. It is an AI-first operating system that happens to run your other apps too. The modular architecture means AI services run as core system components, not as add-ons. Your files, your emails, your browsing history, all accessible to local AI models running on that NPU. And here is the thing. This is probably the right long-term bet. Local AI processing is faster, more private, and more reliable than cloud-based alternatives. But in the short term, it means every PC sold from 2027 onwards will be designed primarily around AI workloads, with traditional computing as a secondary concern. We have gone from AI is a feature, to AI is the product, to AI is the operating system, in about 3 years. Whether the average person actually wants their computer to be an AI agent is, in my opinion, still an open question. But Microsoft has decided the answer is yes, and they are not really asking. The HIMSS conference, which is the big healthcare technology event, happened this week. And the theme was AI agents everywhere. Oracle has rolled out an agent that helps physicians in 30 specialties draft their notes and suggest next steps for patients. Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are all deploying AI personas into healthcare settings. Epic, which makes the electronic health records that most hospitals use, is integrating AI throughout its platform. The momentum is real. But Stat News ran an excellent piece asking the question nobody at these conferences wants to hear. Where is the validation? These AI agents are being deployed into clinical settings where errors can literally kill people. And the validation frameworks, the clinical trials, the safety testing, they are not keeping pace with the deployment speed. We are essentially running a massive uncontrolled experiment on healthcare AI with real patients. The companies will say they have internal testing. They will point to pilot programs and accuracy metrics. But accuracy metrics in a controlled demo and accuracy in a chaotic emergency department at 3 in the morning are very different things. Healthcare AI might be the most important application of this technology. It also might be the one where we can least afford to get it wrong. In developer tool news, OpenAI's standalone Codex app for Mac has hit 2 million weekly active users, growing at 25% week over week. Meanwhile, Cursor retained its spot on A16Z's top 50 web products list. The AI coding tool market has gone from experimental novelty to essential infrastructure in about 18 months. And this connects back to the prompt injection story. 2 million developers using Codex. Millions more using Copilot, Cursor, Claude Code, and a dozen other tools. Every single one of these tools ingests context from the developer's environment. Every single one of them is a potential vector for the kind of attack we saw this week. We are building our critical software infrastructure using tools that are themselves vulnerable to a class of attacks we barely understand. I am not saying we should stop. The productivity gains are real. But we need to be honest about the fact that we are building on foundations we have not finished inspecting. On the regulation front, Vermont became the latest state to pass AI-specific legislation. Senate Bill 23 concerns the use of synthetic media in elections and was signed by Governor Phil Scott on March 5. The bill requires disclosure when AI-generated content is used in election campaign materials. It sounds simple, and in some ways it is. But it is also one of the first concrete pieces of legislation that draws a clear line around a specific AI use case. Compare this to the EU's AI Act, which tries to regulate everything and ends up being so complex that nobody is quite sure how to comply with it. Vermont said, "We are going to focus on one thing. AI in elections. Disclose it. That is it." And honestly, more states should be taking this approach. Small, specific, enforceable rules that address real harms. Not comprehensive frameworks that try to predict every possible future use case and end up regulating nothing effectively. And finally, let us talk about something culturally interesting. After OpenAI announced its Pentagon deal to deploy AI models on military systems, a movement called QuickGPT exploded on social media. People deleting their ChatGPT accounts, encouraging others to switch to alternatives, publishing guides on how to move your workflows to Claude or Gemini or open-source models. It is hard to know how big this actually is in terms of real user numbers. 900 million weekly users is a lot of inertia. But the sentiment is real, and it mirrors something we saw in earlier tech cycles. Remember when people quit Facebook after Cambridge Analytica? Or when they left Twitter after the acquisition? Some of those movements had real impact. Most did not. What is different here is that for the first time, there are genuine alternatives. Claude is competitive with GPT for most tasks. Gemini is getting better fast. Open-source models like Llama and Mistral are good enough for many use cases. If people actually want to quit, they can, without a massive quality drop. Whether they will is another question entirely. But the fact that ethical concerns about AI military applications are driving a consumer boycott movement tells you something about how mainstream this technology has become. AI is no longer a niche tool that only developers care about. It is a political issue. And companies that build AI are going to have to start thinking about their military contracts the same way they think about their consumer brand. Because increasingly, they are the same thing. So that is your AI News download for the week of March 12, 2026. 1,600 jobs at Atlassian, traded for an AI future. AI agents fighting over who gets to live on your desktop. 900 million people using ChatGPT. Britain's AI billions that might be AI millions. A prompt injection that hit 4,000 developers. A Chrome vulnerability that shows what happens when AI gets browser permissions. Windows going AI first. Healthcare deploying agents without proper validation. And a growing movement of people who are not sure they trust any of this. It has been a week. If you found this useful, subscribe to Signal versus Noise. We do this every week, cutting through the noise to find the signal. I am Ray Timmons. See you next time.